Hey, Pastor Ted here, and I'm standing in farmland outside of Curtis, Nebraska. And I'm going to have Janelle take a photo of it. You can see the expanse of the land. Hopefully you can capture it, and you can even see where she grew up. There's a clump of trees that she'll show of where her family farm was. It's here in this large area that the farmland that there's a small cemetery that I'm standing in right now. And yesterday a large number of farmers and ranchers gathered together to remember Janelle's best friend in a memorial service here. And as Janelle and I visited the cemetery the day before the service and yesterday during the service and after, I was reminded of three really important lessons of life that I needed to be reminded of, and hopefully as I remind them of you, they'll be helpful in your thinking. The first is that life is very, very short. Life is brief, and we need to be intentional in our relationships, with our family and with our friends, but most importantly in our relationship with God. Psalm 39, 4-7, the psalmist writes about how life is but a breath, and it's so short, and we need to really evaluate where we put our hope in this life. And he said, my hope is in the Lord and the Lord alone. And so we think about how brief life is. The cemetery reminds us life is short, and we need to evaluate where we're spending our time and where our hope is put. A second thing is that life is so very, very hard, and it can take a real toll on people. We don't begin to understand sometimes the toll it takes. As we walked around the cemetery, Janelle knew the stories of some of the different people here in this place. And so here this 20-year-old died, and she knew the story of what happened to her. And we go to another gravestone, and we see, and she goes, I knew this guy when I was a kid, and he was rough. He was really rough. And yet, as we look to the right of that tombstone, there was one of his child who lived 2 days. And you go to the right of that, and it was many years later, there's a tombstone for another child that died on the day of their birth. And so life is hard, and people need to be reminded, we need to be reminded that God is near the brokenhearted. He is near those crushed in spirit. And we need to remember that God is our peace when we're embattled in this life. God is our hope in a time of hopelessness and despair. And there's a third lesson that I was reminded of, and that is that this earth is not our home. Sometimes I think we just come to the belief that life should be perfect. We shouldn't have any problems, and that we should have heaven on earth, but that's not what we're here for. That's not our citizenship is in heaven, not here on this earth. You know, and sometimes when things don't go perfect, when we face suffering and pain and hardship and death, we can think that life is being unfair. You know, we look at our friend Darla, and she suffered for 7 years, and we can find ourselves asking why. Why did such a wonderful, godly person have to go through that? But then we come back and we gain the perspective that this is not our home. In Philippians chapter 3, verse 20 and 21, I just want to read this to you. It says, but we are citizens of heaven, where the Lord Jesus Christ lives, and we are eagerly waiting for him to return as our Savior. He will take our weak mortal bodies and change them into glorious bodies like his own, using the same power with which he will bring everything under his control. This is not our home. So it should give us perspective when we face suffering and hardship, and it also should cause us to anticipate that day when we will be with Jesus. So there's 3 lessons from a cemetery in Curtis, Nebraska. One is that life is so very brief, and we need to be intentional in living our life, putting our hope in the Lord and being intentional in our relationship with other people. And second, that life is hard. And people need to be reminded, we need to be reminded, that God is near the brokenhearted. He is near those crushed in spirit. He is our peace. He is our hope in times of hopelessness. And finally, that this is not our home. This is not our home. And that we are citizens of heaven, and we need to look forward to that day. So I hope you have a great day. We look forward to seeing you face to face, hopefully Sunday if the Lord wills. Take care.